Hello everyone. This is Swayam MOOC on Economics for Gender and Economic Development course offered by KK Hendricks State Open University. I am Dr. Anamika Das. I am working as an assistant professor at DK Girls College Mirza. So today we are discussing about women in the labor market. This is module 23 week 7. So why we need to discuss about women in the labor market? So, for this, we need to understand that there is a complex relationship between women's engagement in the labor market and the broader development pattern. And these complexities arise from the interplay of economic growth, social norms, policy frameworks, and the diverse realities of women's lives. So, generally, it is believed that when a country is developed and growing at a higher rate, it creates avenues for females and they are absorbed in the labor market, but the opposite might not be true. So if there is an expansion of female participation in the labor market, that doesn't mean that the economy is also growing or the country is developed. And why it's not the case? It's because of this complex relationship, which arises from the social norms and the diverse realities of women's lives. So in order to understand this module, we would focus on factors affecting female entry in the labor market, supply and demand for female labor in the developed and developing countries, and the trends of female workforce participation. So this is the overview of the module. First, we'll discuss about the supply and demand factors. So, we have separated the supply and demand factors affecting female participation in the labor market for developing countries and developed countries because those factors vary across countries. Then we will talk about the female work participation concept, how we define that, and then we will discuss about the trend of female workforce participation rate to understand the current situation of female participation in labor market in India. And then we will go to the complex relationship between female workforce participation and the overall national development. So, the learning objectives of these modules are analyzing. From this, once you grasp this module, we will be able to analyze supply side and demand side factors of female labor force. We will be able to understand the concept of female workforce participation rate. And this module will also help in analyzing the recent trend of increasing female workforce participation rate in India. And finally, which is very important, this module will help us in understanding the complex relationship between female workforce participation and the overall development of the country. So, why we are talking about supply side and demand side factors of female labor force? Because the observed level of employment is basically the result of the supply and demand for female or any labor in a market. So when we talk about female labor force, then that employment is determined by the supply and the demand of female labor force. So, and it varies across countries. In developing countries, that equilibrium level of employment where demand and supply cuts each other, it gives a lower level of employment because the supply side and demand side factors such that it creates lower level of employment avenues for the employment opportunities for the female. And however, in developed countries, the picture will be different. First, we'll talk about the developing countries. We'll talk about the demand side and supply side factors affecting labor force participation and in developing countries. So, in this slide, we will discuss about the demand side factors of female labor force in developing countries. And here we will discuss those factors which affect at a time. These are not the factors which can affect the demand for female labor over the time. These are the factors which affect the female labor at a point of time. So, on the demand side, beliefs regarding appropriate types of work can shape employer hiring preferences and therefore demand for women's labor. So, what does this point explains? So as an employer, they have their values and belief system. So as an employer, they have this preconceived idea that, oh, these are the work which can be done by the female, and these are the works which might not be properly done by the females. Say if we talk about a corporate sector, mostly in the HR department females are hired. However, in say in engineering department, mostly males are preferred. So these are some kind of preconceived notions which actually which actually influence employers decision to hire male versus female. Even if direct employer side discrimination is absent, previous periods segregation can propagate over time due to exemplar effects. Sometimes the employer might not have any preconceived ideas. He might be very open to any gender, but to begin with, there are some segregation in the workforce. Say if we take the example of care work or hospitality work, we can see more and more female than the male. So this kind of segregation and creates an idea that these are the sectors where females are mostly employed. Then the male breadwinner norm, which means that a fixed amount of labor demand is first met with the supply of male labor, and only if men are not available are women hired for the job. Now we will discuss about the supply side factors of female labor force in a developing country at a point of time. So why a female, so what do we mean by supply side factors? Why a female would join or will go for work? So here, although I am repeatedly using the work, we need to define the concept of work properly. So when we talk about female participating in the labor force, we mean that a female wants to do work for economic benefit or for income. Because it's not like that if somebody is not is working is doing household work, that doesn't mean that that female is not working. They are working, but that is not for any economic gain, or therefore that they are not earning any income. So so here when we are talking about supply side factors or demand side factors of female labor force, we are talking about the work that a female want to do for economic gain or for income earning. So when a female wants to earn income and therefore she wants to join the labor force, and what factors actually affect those decisions, we are going to discuss in this slide. So norms around responsibility for household work. So, although a female wants to go out of their house and work for economic gains, there are certain norms and responsibility a female has to do, perform their household duties first, and then only they can go out and work. So that actually affects their decision to join labor force. And marriage and motherhood norms. So before marriage, if we may be allowed to go out and work, but after marriage is because of social norms and all, female might not be able to go out and work. And again, once a female become a mother, because she has to take care of the baby, and physically also she might not be fit to join the labor force just after her pregnancy, so that also hamper her participation in the labor force. Norms around decision making within the household as well as mobility outside it. So this point actually that wants to say that in a household who make the decisions, if in that households that female member doesn't have any say, although she wants to go out and work for certain income, she might not be able to do if the decisions are made by someone else. Then the fourth point is the threat of sexual violence and beliefs around family honor, which can lead households to limit women's mobility. So some female, although want to go and work outside, they might not do that because of the fear of sexual violence in the workplaces. And also, particularly in Indian society, if female belong to a higher income strata, working outside is not considered as an honorable thing. So because of the family honor, female might not be able to go out and work. So the takeaway message from this slide is that social norms actually dictate whether female will go outside and work. And also one important point is that even if a woman does not face mobility restrictions from within the family or a community, she may still be unfree because of larger concern around violence. So a woman is well educated and she belongs to a family where is not restricted to move out. She is encouraged to go out and work, or her community is also like that. Even then also she might not be able to go and work because of the larger societal conditions. Say if a woman get a night shift, that woman might not be able to take that because the roads are not safe for females at night. So because of this larger societal concerns, female may opt out of the labor force. So, in the last two slides, we discussed about the factors affecting female demand and supply factors which affect female labor force or at a point of time. Now, we will discuss factors affecting female participation in the workforce over time. How over time female labor force participation changes, which factors affect that. So, the first point is the male breadwinner norm ensures that rising male incomes are accompanied by falling female work participation. So this is basically income effect. So when in a household income starts increasing, male members income starts increasing, then females doesn't feel the need to go out and work, and then this stop working. And once those family needs are not met, then female will go out and work. But once those ones are met and the family is moving towards the upper strata of the income, then the female stop working. And another effect is the norms effect. In India, women working outside the home is often seen as a sign of lower social standing. As household income increases, norms against women may become more rigid and families may withdraw women from the workforce. So norms effect is basically patriarchal or societal norms where it is believed that women from a respectable family should be inside the home and they should not go out and work for money. So and this income effect and this norm effects interplay with each other. So once the household become rich, that pride also, the burden of that pride also becomes heavy, and then female will starts not going out work. So now we will discuss about the supply side and demand side factors of female labor force in developed countries. So as we already discussed, in developing countries, the demand and supply side factors results in a female labor force participation which is very low. However, in developed countries, female labor participation is high because of the demand and supply side factors are different in developed countries, and that results in a higher levels of female workforce participation at a given point of time. So in this slide we will discuss about the supply side factors of female labor force in developed countries. The supply of female labor in developed countries has seen a dramatic rise over the past century, and in developed countries, this rise is because of increased education, technological advances which reduces household work time, changing norms leading to nearly half of the workforce in places like the US. Though participation rates vary, with married women notably increasing their involvement, and key factors like childcare access and policies supporting work life balance remain crucial for further growth. So, in developed countries, the supply of female labor force depends on the education, because most of the people in developed countries are having quality education, so they are well equipped with the skills and they get easily absorbed. And because of the technological advances is in the household also, females doesn't need to spend much time in performing household works because of the technological advances. However, one thing we need to know that both in developed and developing countries, care works are mostly performed by females. And because in developed countries, technological advances made females life easy, because they can have access to all those electronics which help in household chores. Then with the expansion of education, norms also, societal norms also changes, and female, more and more females are actually encouraged to work for economic benefits. And also in developed countries, female also understand the importance of independence, and where from they will get the independence? Through money. If they don't have money, they have to be dependent on their parents or on their partners. So once they start earning money, they don't need to depend on anyone else, and that gives a different kind of freedom. And in developed countries, because of their education, they feel that, and therefore they are more and more female join labor force. And however, even in developed countries also, for females, participation in the labor force is constrained by childcare facilities and work life balance. So if a female is working in a company where she doesn't get enough maternity leave, or if she has to spend most of the hours of the week in an office room, I mean, it's not possible for her to work and to lead a happy and healthy life. And so those things are crucial for a female to decide whether she wants to go out and work. Now, what are the demand side factors of female labor force in a developed country? The demand for women in developed countries is consistently high and growing, and it's driven by economic needs. But it faces challenges like the motherhood penalty, cultural norms, and sector segregation. So, in developed countries, because they have more and more or opportunities for females, so the demand for female labor is increasing. But again, it is constrained by the, again, it depends on whether those employment opportunities are giving work life balance or maternity benefits, or they are only bothered about money and availability of work. If a sector is not giving proper maternity benefits, then even though the demand is increasing for female might not join those sectors. And the second point is, while education boosts participation, barriers like childcare and informal work remain significant, necessitating supportive policies for parental leave, equal pay, and accessible transport to fully realize economic benefits and close the gender gap. So, even in developed countries, although education boosts participation, as we already discussed, if childcare facilities are not provided, then female will not be able to give their full, I mean, they will not fully able to work. And even in developed countries also, it's seen that more and more female work in the informal sector, where these facilities are missing. Now we'll discuss about the concept of female workforce participation rate. So till this point, we discuss about female work and the factors which affect female labor demand and supply side factors. So now how we measure female participation in the workforce. So for that, we use this concept of female workforce participation rate. There is another concept, female labor force participation rate. Till this slide, I am using the word labor force and workforce interchangeably. However, there is a difference between the two, and I will come to that difference. So first, we will start with the concept of female workforce participation rate. So the workforce participation rate concept used by National Sample Survey, and it measures the percentage of women who are employed within the total female population of a given area and age group. So in this definition, we have to define to another concept to understand this female workforce participation rate. First concept is worker. Who is a worker? A woman is considered as a worker if she is engaged in any economic activity. So by economic activity, the activity which gives her some amount of income. And then how we define a worker? We define a worker based on the activity status. This is again introduced by National Sample Survey. NSS primarily uses the usual status approach for long-term analysis, which classifies a person's activity status over a long referenced period. So NSS gave two status, principal status and subsidiary status. The activities where a person spent the majority of their working time during the year is considered as principal status, and the subsidiary status is the status if a person was engaged in another economic activity for at least 30 days during the year. It is considered as subsidiary status. So I'll give you one example. Say a woman works more than 6 months of a year as a farmer, and then her principal status will be farming or farmer. And say for 3 months, because say it's a drought season or flood, for 3 months she might go to nearby city to work as a construction worker. So this this can be considered as a subsidiary status. So in order to define female workforce participation rate, we need to understand these two concepts. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there is another concept, female labor force participation rate. So, labor force, the difference between labor force and workforce is that in the labor force, we also include those workers who are looking for a job, but they might not get a chance to work, but they are also looking for job. So, they are also considered as considered in the labor force, but they are not considered in the workforce. So, that is the difference between the concept of female workforce participation and the labor force participation. Now we want to see the how this female workforce participation rate change in India. So we have taken the recent data. As we know, India's female workforce participation rate was always very low. I mean, and if we compare with the global level, it's much lower than the global average. However, in the recent time, we have seen an upward movement of female workforce participation rate in India, which at first glance is very encouraging. If we try to understand this pattern, this might indicate that this increase in female workforce participation may be distress driven. So this graph I have taken from State of Working India report 2023, prepared by Ajim Premji University, and they used PLF 2021 survey data. So this is based on PLF survey data. So here we can see that this increase in female workforce participation rate at the time period coincide with the COVID-19 lockdown period. So and also in 2019, we can see that the economy start, I mean the growth rate starts declining. So it's a paradoxical situation, because normally when the economy grows, then only female workforce participation rate also normally grows, because growth creates avenues for the females. But here we have seen a paradoxical situation where although the economy was not growing, female workforce participation rate was increasing. So the blue line is indicating the rural female workforce participation rate, and the red line is indicating the urban picture. And both rural and urban shows an increasing trend, although in rural India, female workforce participation rate is higher than the urban India. And it's because of during COVID-19 lockdown, there was distress, and their male members started returning from cities, and because the income, there is a halt in the income generation, therefore female else also started joining the workforce, particularly in MG work, to support their families. However, in urban areas there are some government policies which actually help in developing skill of the women, and which help in creating some jobs in the formal sector in the in urban India, but that is not the case in rural India. So in rural India, this increase in female workforce participation rate is can be seen mostly as a distance driven phenomenon. Now, I mean, we have seen that female workforce participation rate has increased. Now we want to see what kind of jobs has been created in those periods. So this blue bar indicates salaried job, red one is for casual, and yellow one is for self-employed. And we have seen that over the time period from 2018 to 22, the self-employed has been among female self-employed workers are increasing, whereas salaried and casual worker female workers are getting reduced. So what this so we can summarize this trend in those 4 points. Women's participation in India's labor market is rising. It is driven largely by rural women entering agriculture and service sectors due to economic needs. This reflects both policy success and potential distress-driven entry, with ongoing efforts to boost formal employment and address barriers The growth slowdown of 2018 to 20, followed by COVID-19 pandemic of 2021, have left a strong impact which is strongly gendered, with women being more affected. As of the end of 2022, the structure of the workforce is skewed more towards self employment than it was before the slowdown, and earnings remain depressed. Now, based on the discussion about the demand and supply side factors and the trend of female workforce participation, what we can talk about the complex relationship between female workforce participation and overall development of the country. So, while a direct link exists where women's labor drives economic growth, growth alone doesn't automatically translate to gender equity in the workplace. Women often remain vulnerable in informal jobs or low wage employment despite overall economic progress. So, yes, although there is a direct link between growth and women's labor, I mean, when more and more women work, of course, there will be growth because apart from male, now female are also working. But only growth doesn't say that okay, more and more female are working and it's actually creating a equal society. That might not be the case, because for that we need to see where these women are getting engaged. And from the trend, we have seen that women are mostly self-employed and they are not in the formal sector. So by self-employed, I mean, again, this NSS data indicates that among the self-employed, it's mostly own account enterprises which the dominant the self-employed. And what are these own account enterprises? These own account enterprises are those where the enterprises are run by without any hired workers, using only family workers, and their earnings are also very low. And almost we can say 70% of the self-employed are own account enterprises. So when we see that more and more female are working as a self-employed, we cannot say that it's an encouraging picture for India's economy, because it's again informal, and it's low income generating income mostly. The second point is deeply entrenched social and cultural norms significantly restrict women's participation. These barriers can include expectations around unpaid care work and family responsibilities, which limit the time and energy women have for paid employment. Policy interventions are often needed to address these structural barriers directly. So, apart from growth and demand for female, there are social and cultural norms which actually restricts women's participation. So in a society, particularly in Indian society, it is expected that care works should be performed by the female only. In a household, mostly we see that it's the female who perform most of the household chores. Even if she is working and her husband is working, once she comes back from her office, she has to make the dinner and serve to her husband and the kids. And also she has to take care of the parents, mostly her husband's parents, not her own parents. So these are the expectations from the society, and these are the unpaid work. And after performing all those works, she is overburdened. I mean, if she has to do both paid work and unpaid work at home, she is actually double burdened, and it actually reduces her productivity, and it affects her mental and physical health. And also she always have this feeling of guilt, that whether she is, because and in the office, she thinks that she cannot compete with others because she is not good enough. And in the family, she feel that she is not doing her duty properly, because she is going out for work, keeping her kids at home or in the class, because it's the society which every day makes her feel that. And this is a very complex relationship, and this doesn't go away just by the, what we can say, those growth numbers, because for that government has to, there should be a policy intervention. For example, I mean, maternity care. So in formal sector job, there are maternity leave for female. However, in informal sector, there is hardly any maternity leave. And I mean, and there are other restrictions also which are not considered in informal sector. And also, the impact of women's labor varies drastically across different countries and regions depending on local policies, economic structures, and cultural context. This relationship is not uniform globally. So, that's why we discuss about the demand side and supply side factors of female labor force for developing and developed countries. So it varies across countries. It gives employment level, different kind of employment level, whereas in developing countries it gives a very lower level of employment. However, in developed countries, because say the demand for female depends on their education, technological advancement, therefore it gives a higher level of employment. And the complexity also stems from the quality of engagement. Yeah, I mean, females are mostly engaged in informal work, whereas it's the female who needs the most protection. So in informal sector job, if they are I mean, if some sexual violence happened against a woman in an informal setup, there is no what you can say legal body where she can approach and she can lodge her complaint. And so these kind of complexities, I mean, whereas we can see that in the informal sector job, females, mostly females are there. If we compare the formal and informal sector job, it's the male who dominates the formal sector job, whereas it's the female who are mostly working in the informal sector job. Development outcomes improve when women are in decent work with fair pay and protections, not just any job. Engagement in precarious work may not lead to the desired developmental benefits for women or society. So that's why with this is a very important message. So if women are not in decent work with fair pay and protections, we cannot expect any development outcomes, because our future generation mostly depends on those women, because they have to take care of their kids. And recent trend also shows that the in fertility rate in India has started declining. So why? Because if women has to go outside work and without any protections, without any childcare benefits, how they will work? They have to stop working, or they have to stop caring about the baby, or stop having babies at all. So that's why development outcome only will only improve when women are in decent work conditions. And if they are mostly in the precarious work, so it will be like distress driven. So and again that breadwinning norms will play. Once male member is getting enough income, a female will stop joining the labor force, because the in economic needs are made. Because if outside work is not fair enough for women, why they will go and work? However, that only as we from our experience, it's clear that only income, if a woman start working for money, it gives her autonomy to take decision. In a family where both male and female aunts, they have equal, if not equal, but at least they have 60-40 say. But if a female is not earning at all, she has zero vote in family decisions. So if less and less female go outside and work, then the society will be a biased society, will not be an equal society. So with this, I would like to finish this model. Thank you very much.